Welcome. It is that time of year again where I take you through my lettered box and we just kind of sit and chat about all the movies that I've watched so far. A common thing you will see across all the movies that I watch is I typically watch a lot of older films. I don't typically watch a lot of new releases, whether that be in the box office or onto streaming platforms, a lot of like Netflix originals and things. It's just not typically what I'm drawn to when I want to sit down and watch a film. I just get a lot more out of older films, and there are a lot that I haven't seen. So typically, if I'm looking for something new to watch, I would rather get an older movie recommendation than a newer one. Let's get into it. January, really the only notable film that I watched was Nosferatu. I went to the theaters to see it with my best friend and my fiance. My best friend is super goth and loves horror, so it was more so a film that I think she got a lot out of. I watched it more for the film history, and also I'm a big Robert Eggers fan. Even though I'm not super into horror, I'm a bit of a baby when it comes to it. There were a lot of notable cast members that I was really excited to see. I really wanted to see how a movie that was made 1918, I want to say. I might be off on the year. But I wanted to see how it would translate towards modern day cinema and modern day audiences and how it's different. I've seen the original. I have not seen the one that was made in the 70s. And I really enjoyed it. I didn't like certain aspects of it when I first left the theater, but after sitting with it, they don't bother me as badly. The children's scene was a bit of a heartache, but it was such a beautifully done film. I don't want to call it a movie. It truly was a film. It was so beautiful to finally see a modern day. Hi, sweet girl. It was really nice to see a modern day film that was set in a dark setting, but I could actually see what was going on. A lot of films now, whenever it's dark, they don't light the scene to where you can see it. They're just like, it's dark, so you don't get to see anything, and I hate that. And so having things that were so beautifully lit by moonlight was really stunning to see, particularly the scene where Nicholas Hoult is standing in a kind of like a fork in the road, I guess, where he's silhouetted by moonlight. That scene was so stunning. That one really stuck with me as soon as I saw it. The scenes where they're lit by candlelight, and I'm not sure if it was only by candlelight, but that's how it appeared. And there were a lot of great lighting techniques, and the cinematography was really well. A lot of the framing and composition and certain transitions where they play a lot with the Nosferatu's shadow, the hand, and going through the window. There's a particular scene that I remember. So just getting to see all of that artistry was so captivating, and the actors did a wonderful job at portraying the characters and the emotions, and there's just so much good stuff in that film despite how dark it is, and admittedly parts of it were quite disgusting, but they achieved what they set out to achieve, so kudos to them. And also I really loved leaving the theater and seeing everybody else stand in their little movie circles and just discussing the film. I feel like that's kind of a lost interaction, as most movies now have after credit scenes, and you don't discuss the movie that you saw, you discuss the movie that has yet to come out and might never come out, depending on how the movie you just saw does in the box office. So it was very refreshing. I am a big lover of claymation. Claymation is one of my favorite art mediums, especially in the film world. A lot of my favorite films are done through stop motion. I just think it's an art that takes a lot of patience, and there's so many different styles that you can play with. So when I found out that they were making a new Wallace and Gromit, I knew I had to watch it. And I really liked it. It's not my favorite Wallace and Gromit. I think that one is still Curse the Were-Rabbit. But this one was really fun. I loved the villain, the little penguin guy. I can't remember his name, but he was really funny for him being a silent villain. I love silent villains because it requires a lot on the filmmakers to really nail the emotion through facial expressions, which can be hard in a simplistic art style in claymation, and also body language. I think they really did a really good job of just making him really cute and sinister. I just also love Wallace and Gromit. They were childhood characters of mine, and so I'll always have a soft spot for them. But it was a really fun movie. I love the setting, the sets design part of it. The train scene was really beautiful, even though it was kind of a high stakes moment, and the boat, that was really pretty too. But not a lot to say of that one. I enjoyed it and I would rewatch it, but it's probably not one that I would rank really high on my claymation watch list. I admittedly have not seen the Alien movies, so I'm not super well versed in the lore or what's going on in the franchise, but Alien Romulus was a big ol' stinker. I did not like this. I don't know if that's a hot take. Didn't like the villain. I didn't, not just the monster, but like I think he's a robot or cybernetic guy who turns on them. Didn't like it. I didn't like any of the people who you were supposed to be rooting for. I thought that they were very selfish and young, and like even the main heroine, I didn't really click with her either. And her friend, who I think was pregnant and she was trying to save, I don't know. I thought it was all really dumb and a poor way to kind of, I guess they're trying to reboot the franchise. Not a very interesting way, in my opinion. It didn't click with me, and that happens sometimes. Next couple films I watched for homework for a video, I watched The Story of Joan of Arc, which was really beautiful in some places, and then really, really sad. Like the cold opening, tragic. Did not know what I was signing up for, but there were a lot of moments that I really enjoyed. I really liked the medieval elements that I also get from fantasy, so I thought I was going to like this one a lot more, but it was really sad, and I know the story of Joan of Arc is sad and doesn't end in a happy ending, but it was a whole other thing to see that portrayed on screen. So beautifully tragic. I would recommend watching it at least one time. I know it has a lot of historical inaccuracies, but if you're just wanting to get a Joan of Arc story in a tall tale sort of way, I suppose, then this is one. It has a lot of powerful moments and a lot of frustrating moments. In that same sprint of doing movie watching homework, I also watched Jules and Jim, which is a French New Wave film that I've always heard thrown around when discussing impactful French New Wave films to watch. And I didn't like this one. It was the first French New Wave film that I've watched that I really hated. I think that the two men would have been much better just accepting each other and just pursuing a life together rather than letting this twisted woman into their lives. And there's probably so much that goes into film history on why this movie is so loved. But for me, I didn't like it. It really left a sour taste in my mouth, even though it was probably one of the earlier films to have that kind of tragic punch ending. But yeah, was not my favorite. The last part of my film watching homework was 2001: A Space Odyssey, and it admittedly was the first time that I fully watched this all the way through. I had seen bits and pieces growing up as a kid, as my dad would watch it, but I had never taken the time to sit down and watch all of the 3 hours. I loved it. I love this film as it has so much intention behind it, and I talk about this more in that video, which I'll pin or whatever. But it was so intentional in its set design and its camera work and the special effects that were extremely well done for the time that this movie came out. For all of that, I love it. Even though the story maybe isn't my favorite, as I don't fully understand it, and I do not pretend to understand it. It's so topsy-turvy when you get to the ending of it, and I have a vague idea of what happens. I honestly don't think it takes away from the experience, not knowing or understanding what exactly is going on. It just has that odd artistry that you just have to appreciate because it was just so bold, especially for the time, to have 27 minutes of monkeys and the pre-human era of the world. I understand why this movie has been so impactful. It has been spoofed a lot. It was spoofed in Barbie, which I think is part of the reason that I really wanted to sit down and watch it. but very, very beautiful. I love all of the set design. For the time that this film was made, there was the space race, and that was very impactful on not only society, but also fashion and interior design during the time. And I really feel like it's a time capsule for that side of art history, even though it's supposed to take place in the future. Once again, for homework, I watched SCL Punk because I was really looking for those films that don't really have a super apparent narrative. They're more a slice of life style of storytelling. And SCL Punk had been on my watch list because it has Matthew Lillard in it, and I love him. And I was really disappointed when I did not love this movie. From a subculture standpoint, I understand why people dub this the most punk film. It was, again, one of those movies where I don't really like any of the main characters, and so it's hard for me to want to see where they're going in the story. And there were certain moments that I thought were really funny, a lot of social commentary, especially for the time. Didn't like it. I didn't like the characters, and so when certain moments happen, I'm trying not to spoil it because my friend wants to watch the movie and she watches my videos and I don't want to spoil it for her, but there's a certain moment that happens and it's supposed to be sad, and I just wasn't sad. But I just didn't like any of these characters, so it wasn't very enjoyable, and I was really disappointed because based off of the visuals, I thought I was going to really like it, and it didn't resonate with me like I thought it would. And preparing for my video about all the comfort movies that I like, I watched Dead Poet Society, and I love this film. It's beautifully tragic. I go more in depth in that video, but I love the story and all of the characters and navigating being a teenager and all of the feelings that go along with that. I was a very emo teenager, so I felt very seen, even though it's a movie all about an all-boys school. And I too had an English teacher that a couple English teachers that left very big impacts on my life, especially as an artist. It was one of those films that just really resonated with me. I particularly loved Robin Williams' performance. It's kind of rare that I've seen him in a more serious role, but he still had that charming comedic side slipped in there. I rewatched Monty Python and the Holy Grail for probably the 100th time. I really love this silly little quirky film. For it being a purely comedic film, there's so much visually that I love. I love the kind of old paper book imagery. I love all the quirky little jokes. There's so many quotable lines my friends, my fiance, and I all throw at each other. So it's just one of those films that I loved as a kid and I love now, and one that whenever I feel like I need a little bit of medieval flair, that's one that I put on. So Epic Universe opened this year, and something that I have been very excited for as someone who's not super into theme parks, but it's the first one to open within my lifetime. Very exciting. And I was also very excited when they announced Darkmoor. And I realized I have not seen any of the Universal monster films. So I decided to change that, and I started with Frankenstein. I read the book in high school. I'm familiar with the story. I thought that one would be the best one to start with. And I was very surprised to see it's nothing like the book. They really just kind of took the premise of the scientist who has been renamed to Henry. He makes a monster. But all of the kind of tension that's built in the novel, they just gone, which is fine. I enjoyed the movie. For, it's an older film with a short runtime, but they were able to do a lot. But I can see why it's still loved to this day. The windmill scene at the end, it's very cool. I am very excited for the new Frankenstein that's going to come out. That one, immediately whenever I saw the trailer and saw that they were following the book, I was really excited. I thought this one followed the book too, but it'll be really cool to compare and contrast and get to see everything. I've already seen some photos from the film sets and the like, so it's very beautifully visually stunning already. I'm very, very excited. I also watched The Invisible Man. Frankenstein and The Invisible Man are on YouTube for free. That's how I watched them, and I'm very thankful that they're on here. The Invisible Man, I I liked a bit more than Frankenstein because I think it was very silly watching the actors having to act around nothing because he's invisible, and all of the I think he took a bike from some guy at some point, and that was really funny. I know it's supposed to be spooky, but to me, it was just kind of comedic to see all the shenanigans that he was doing as he's going crazy on the chemical concoction he made. And it was also kind of, heartwarming that he kind of gained his sanity just for a split second when he saw his beloved and all of that. But I have not read the book, but I want to after watching the film to compare and contrast. I guess that was part of the reason why maybe I didn't like Frankenstein as much, is because it didn't follow the book, although it was just as enjoyable as its own standalone. But I want to see how The Invisible Man compares to its own book. And then eventually I'll get to watching Dracula and reading Dracula, because another classic piece of literature I've not read. I found a new film that I love under my favorite umbrella of it's just a day in the life and you're just following these characters around. And that's Empire Records, which I was shocked to see that not a lot of people like this movie. I loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It had a lot of jokes that I liked. It has a bit more of a story to it than something like Hugo Pool. In my opinion, it's a bit more apparent of what the conflict is, but I still got the same feeling as watching something like Hugo Pool or Dazed and Confused. It was really fun getting to see a young Liv Tyler. I love Lord of the Rings, and so getting to see a younger Liv Tyler was really fun, and I've never seen her earlier works. I really love the cast of characters that are in it. They're all kind of quirky in their own sort of way, and at the end of the day, even though they're all a little different than each other, they're like a little work family. So they all band together. It was really fun. And I think that's what I liked the most about this movie. It was just really fun. And for my parents who grew up in the 90s, it was fun getting to kind of see a time capsule of what it was like as a teenager, to a exaggerated degree, of course. There were moments that they were like, yeah, it was really like that. And I'm like, dang, you guys had so much fun. We're just brain rotting on social media. I would have much rather been hanging out at a record store. But then the most recent movie that I've watched was the new James Gunn Superman, which I am a big superhero fan. Not as much as I was when I was a kid. I was a big comic book kid. I didn't read the actual ultimate universe and all that stuff, because what is a 7-year-old gonna do with all of that plot? So I read things like Tiny Titans and Mary Jane Loves Spider-Man, and there was a Supergirl comic that I really loved. So I've always been a big Marvel and DC fan. Grew up watching the cartoons. I have never liked the what are they calling it? The DCEU. I've never liked it. I saw Man of Steel and hated it, so I just kind of brushed it off. And I saw that when it came out. So it's really bad when a teenager goes to see your movie and says, this is bad, I'm not going to pick up any of your other ones. Although I did watch Wonder Woman because my mom loves Wonder Woman. But I didn't care for any of the rest, and I haven't cared since. But when I found out that James Gunn was going to be rebooting the DC cinematic universe, I was really excited because I love all of the Guardians films. I was really excited when I saw the trailer and saw that there were things like Crypto, who I love Crypto. It was really fun to see him on screen. And I just love how colorful and Superman looks silly, and I love that. There was just so much thought and attention put in. I really love that there were a lot of more comic accurate things that even I didn't know. I didn't know Jimmy Olsen was a ladies' man. I always have seen him portrayed as some geeky best friend to Clark, and so that was really fun to see. I love getting to see characters that I've never met before. Mr. Terrific, I really love Mr. Terrific. He was really cool. I want to see more of him. It was really nice to see Hawk Girl. I loved her in the old Justice League cartoon, so I was really excited to see her in this. I love getting to see Nathan Fillion as a Green Lantern that I've never met before because, I watched the Justice League cartoon, and so that's the Green Lantern I think of. But this one, he's a total putz. But I really liked him, even though he's not the most likable Green Lantern, and he honestly doesn't deserve to be Green Lantern. But it was still really fun to see all of these characters on screen. I love the message of the film and how it ends, but it addressed a storytelling issue that I have always kind of looked at oddly, even as a kid. I just appreciate, again, I don't like modern Hollywood as a whole. So getting to see a movie that is so colorful, I love, because I feel like everything in the color grading world has been very dark and like slightly green. So getting to see like even the extras, all the extras were wearing such colorful clothes, and I really love that it felt like Superman. He is the good Boy Scout of DC, and I feel like that was accurately portrayed. And it makes me very excited for the future DC movies. And I know James Gunn has said that each of them will get to have their own tone versus how Marvel is, where they kind of all have the same storytelling tone to them despite who the character is. And I love that because Superman and Batman are totally different characters and they have different themes. Although I would not be mad if the Batman movie, not the Robert Pattinson one that's coming out, but the new Batman had a tone to it that was more akin to the Batman the Animated Series, because that is my favorite version of Batman. And to see something that has that kind of noir style to it on the screen I would love. I don't know if I'll get that, but I'm hoping that there's some of that to the Batman. But it made me very hopeful for what James Gunn has planned and how he's taking his time with everything, but slowly introducing us to who we might see, like Supergirl and all of that. So very excited. But that about does it for what I've watched so far this year. I'm hoping to see Fantastic Four the day that I'm filming this. If I get to, then I'll let you know right here what I thought of it. That about does it for everything that I watched so far this year. Again, there were a lot of like children's movies that I just left out because I don't feel like you guys would be interested in me talking about that. I hope that you've enjoyed just getting to sit and yap about movies. I'd love to hear a movie that you've watched recently, so that way I can add it to my never-ending watch list. If you are new and you would like to see more of my face, you can subscribe, leave a like, all that good jazz. I hope you have a super lovely day, and I'll see you next time.